The billionaire found the abandoned black girl begging to sleep in a doghouse behind his mansion. He adopted her, but when he discovered who she really was and why she was left there, he broke down in tears. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Marcus Sullivan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his home office, watching the late autumn rain pound against the glass. At 29, he had everything most people only dreamed of: a tech empire worth billions, a mansion in the hills overlooking the city, cars that cost more than most houses. But on nights like this, when the silence pressed in from every corner of his enormous home, he felt the weight of something missing, something money couldn't buy. He was about to turn back to his computer when a movement near the garden caught his eye. Something small, darting between the hedges. His security lights flickered on, illuminating the backyard. Marcus leaned closer to the window, squinting through the rain. There, crouched near the old doghouse he'd built years ago for a pet he never got, was a child. Marcus's heart lurched. He grabbed his jacket and rushed downstairs, his designer shoes slipping on the wet patio stones, as he ran toward the back of his property. The rain soaked through his clothes within seconds, but he barely noticed. "Hey!" he called out, his voice gentler than he intended. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The small figure pressed further back into the doghouse, and that's when Marcus's breath caught in his throat. It was a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with dark skin and wide, terrified eyes that seemed too old for her young face. Her clothes were soaked through, her thin frame shaking violently from the cold. She clutched a dirty stuffed rabbit to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her alive. "Please," the little girl whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Please, mister. I'll be real quiet. I just need somewhere warm. Just for tonight. I won't make no trouble. I can sleep right here in the doghouse. Please don't call them." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. He'd seen poverty before, written checks to combat it, funded programs to fight it, but he'd never looked it in the eyes like this. He'd never seen it shivering in his backyard, begging to sleep in a doghouse. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, kneeling down in the mud, not caring about his expensive pants. The girl studied him with those ancient eyes, as if weighing whether she could trust him. Finally, she whispered, "Emma." "Emma," Marcus repeated softly. "That's a beautiful name. I'm Marcus. And Emma, you're not sleeping in any doghouse. Not tonight. Not ever. Will you come inside with me? I have warm blankets, hot chocolate, and a real bed. Would that be okay?" Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head violently. "I can't. If they find me inside, they'll take me back. They always take me back. But maybe if I just stay out here real quiet-like, they won't notice." "Who's they, Emma? Who are you running from?" But Emma just shook her head again, pulling the stuffed rabbit closer. That's when Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. On Emma's thin wrist, barely visible beneath her wet sleeve, was a hospital bracelet, and bruises, dark purple bruises that looked like fingerprints. Marcus felt rage and protectiveness surge through him in equal measure. Whatever this child had been through, whatever she was running from, he would protect her. He didn't know why he felt so certain, why this tiny stranger had walked into his life and immediately claimed a piece of his heart he didn't know existed. "Emma," he said, his voice steady and warm, "I promise you, and I never break my promises, no one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go. You're safe now, but you're freezing, and you need help. Will you trust me? Just for tonight?" Emma looked at him for a long moment, studying his face in the dim security lights. Whatever she saw there must have convinced her, because slowly, hesitantly, she reached out her small hand. Marcus took it gently, feeling how cold her fingers were, how small and fragile she seemed. As he helped her out of the doghouse, He wrapped his jacket around her shaking shoulders. She barely came up to his waist. "Thank you," Emma whispered as they walked toward the mansion. "Nobody ever—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "Nobody ever said I could come inside before." Urdi, as Marcus led Emma through his back door and into the warmth of his home, he had no idea that this moment, this simple act of kindness, would unravel a mystery that had been 23 years in the making. He didn't know that this little girl carried a secret that would bring him to his knees, a secret that connected them in ways he couldn't yet imagine, but he would find out soon enough, and when he did, nothing would ever be the same. Marcus wrapped Emma in the softest blanket he could find, watching as she sank into the oversized armchair in his living room. She looked impossibly small, swallowed by the fabric, her eyes darting around the room as if memorizing escape routes. "How about that hot chocolate?" Marcus asked gently, keeping his distance so he wouldn't startle her. Emma nodded, clutching her stuffed rabbit. As Marcus headed to the kitchen, he pulled out his phone and Googled what to do when you find an abandoned child. Every website screamed the same thing: call the police, call Child Protective Services. But something in Emma's terror when she mentioned, "They'll take me back," made him hesitate. He returned with 2 steaming mugs and a plate of cookies. Emma's eyes widened at the sight of food, and she grabbed 3 cookies at once, shoving them into her mouth like she hadn't eaten in days. She probably hadn't. "Emma," Marcus said softly, sitting across from her, "can you tell me where you came from, where your parents are?" Emma's face crumpled. "My mama, she went to heaven when I was 4. I don't remember her much, just that she smelled like flowers, and she sang to me." She hugged the rabbit tighter. "She gave me Mr. Hoppy before she left." "And your father?" "Never met him. Mama said he didn't know about me." Emma took a shaky sip of hot chocolate. "After Mama died, I went to live with different families, foster homes they called them. But nobody wanted to keep me." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Why would you say that, sweetheart?" "Because I'm different," Emma whispered. "The other kids said mean things, called me names and the families. They were nice at first, but then they'd send me back, every time. This last family, the Hendersons, they were the worst. Mr. Henderson, he—" She stopped, her small body trembling. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "Did he hurt you?" Emma pulled up her sleeve, revealing more bruises. "He said I ate too much, that I cost too much. He locked me in the basement sometimes. Mrs. Henderson pretended not to see, so tonight, when they were fighting about money, I just ran. I ran as fast as I could until I couldn't run anymore. And then I saw your house and the doghouse, and I thought maybe—" "You thought you could hide there," Marcus finished, his voice thick with emotion. "He wanted to find this Henderson man and make him pay for every bruise, every moment of fear he'd caused this innocent child." Emma nodded. "I'm sorry for trespassing, mister. I'll leave tomorrow, I promise. I just needed one warm night." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You're not going anywhere. Not back to the Hendersons, not to any place that doesn't treat you like the precious gift you are. Do you understand me, Emma?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But you don't even know me. Why would you help me?" Marcus didn't have an answer. He only knew that from the moment he saw her in that doghouse, something fundamental had shifted in his universe. This child needed him, and maybe, just maybe, he needed her too. "Because everyone deserves kindness," he finally said. "And because I think maybe you found your way to me for a reason." That night, Marcus set Emma up in one of his guest rooms. As he tucked her into bed, a bed that seemed to swallow her whole, Emma grabbed his hand. "Marcus," she whispered, "do you believe in angels?" "I don't know, sweetheart." "Why?" "Because my mama told me that when people die, they become angels, and angels watch over the people they love." Emma's eyes were drowsy now, exhaustion finally claiming her. Maybe Mama sent me to you." As Marcus watched Emma drift off to sleep, her words echoed in his mind. He didn't believe in fate or divine intervention. He was a man of logic, of code, and algorithms. But looking at this sleeping child, something whispered that perhaps some connections transcended logic. He just didn't know yet how right he was. Marcus woke to the smell of something burning. He bolted upright, momentarily disoriented, before remembering Emma. He rushed downstairs to find the little girl standing on a chair in his kitchen trying to make breakfast. Black smoke poured from the toaster. "Emma, careful!" He rushed over, unplugging the toaster and lifting her down from the chair. "I'm sorry!" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to make you breakfast, to say thank you. But I messed it up. I always mess everything up." Marcus knelt down to her level. Hey, you didn't mess anything up. You were trying to do something kind. How about we make breakfast together?" Over scrambled eggs and fresh toast, Marcus asked the question that had kept him up most of the night. "Emma, I need to make some calls today to make sure you're safe and taken care of properly. Can you tell me the name of the agency that placed you with the Hendersons?" Emma's fork clattered to her plate. "No, please, Marcus. If you call them, they'll just put me somewhere else, somewhere worse. They always do. I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again." "But there are proper channels. The proper channels don't care." Emma's voice cracked with desperation. "Do you know how many times I told caseworkers about the bad things? They wrote it down in their files and did nothing. Please, I'm begging you. Just give me a few days, just a few days to be safe and warm and not scared, please." Marcus looked into those pleading eyes and made a decision that probably broke several laws. "Okay, a few days, but you have to promise me something. If you remember anything that might help me understand your situation better, you'll tell me. Deal?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Deal!" The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Marcus found himself researching child development, buying clothes that actually fit Emma's tiny frame, and learning to braid hair from YouTube videos. Emma began to relax, her smiles coming more frequently, though she still woke up screaming from nightmares. One evening, as they colored together, an activity Marcus discovered he actually enjoyed, Emma said something that made his pencil freeze mid-stroke. "You know what's funny?" Emma said, not looking up from her drawing. "My mama's name was Claire Sullivan." The room seemed to tilt. Sullivan, Marcus's last name. "Sullivan," Marcus repeated carefully. "Are you sure?" "Uh-huh. I saw it on her driver's license once. She kept it in a box with other important papers." "Claire Marie Sullivan." Emma finally looked up. "Is that a common name?" "It's not uncommon," Marcus managed, his mind racing. Sullivan wasn't exactly Smith or Jones, but it wasn't rare either. It could be coincidence. It had to be coincidence. "She was real pretty," Emma continued. "She had photos from when she was young. She was in college, I think. There was one with a big building behind her, red bricks and white columns. She said she studied there before I was born." Marcus's blood turned to ice. "Emma, do you remember which college?" Emma scrunched up her face, thinking hard. "Something with bridge in it, or stone. I was really little when she showed me." "Cambridge?" Marcus whispered. "Yeah, that's it, Cambridge." Emma beamed, proud of remembering. Marcus's hands trembled. This couldn't be happening. His mind tumbled back 23 years to his parents' tragic accident. He'd been 6 years old, the same age Emma was now. His parents, James and Victoria Sullivan, had died in a car crash while driving home from his birthday party. He'd been an only child, raised afterward by his grandmother until she passed when he was 16. But what if he hadn't been an only child? What if there had been a sister? His parents had died when he was 6, but his mother could have been pregnant. Or maybe. His thoughts spiraled. Maybe there was a sibling he never knew about. "Marcus!" Emma's voice pulled him back. "Are you okay? You look funny." "I'm fine, sweetheart," he lied, his voice strained. "Just thinking. Tell me, did your mother ever mention your father's name?" Emma shook her head sadly. She said she loved him very much, but that he came from a world different from hers. She said she never told him about me because she didn't want to ruin his life. She said that made her selfish, but she couldn't help it. She wanted to keep me all to herself. That night, after Emma went to bed, Marcus sat in his office with a glass of whiskey he didn't drink. He pulled out his laptop and began searching for Claire Sullivan, who attended Cambridge. His hands shook as he typed. The search results loaded, and Marcus's world collapsed. There, in a 23-year-old alumni directory, was a photograph of a beautiful young woman with Emma's exact eyes. Claire Marie Sullivan, class of 2002, pre-law student, and she was his cousin. Marcus barely slept that night. He spent hours digging through family records his grandmother had left him, old photo albums he'd never opened, documents he'd stored away after settling her estate. The pieces were all there, scattered across decades, waiting for someone to connect them. Claire Sullivan had been his second cousin, his grandmother's niece's daughter. They'd never met. According to the records, Claire had become estranged from the family in her early 20s. His grandmother's notes, written in shaky handwriting, mentioned poor Claire and terrible choices, but nothing specific. Marcus's mind reeled. If Claire was Emma's mother and Claire was his cousin, then Emma was his family, his blood. The connection he'd felt that rainy night wasn't just compassion, it was recognition on some deeper cellular level. But that raised terrible questions. Why had Emma ended up in foster care? Had there been no other family to take her in? And more importantly, who was Emma's father? Marcus was jolted from his thoughts by a sound downstairs. He crept out of his office to find Emma in the kitchen, making herself a sandwich at 3 a.m. "Can't sleep?" he asked gently. Emma jumped, nearly dropping the knife. "I'm sorry. I was hungry and I didn't want to wake you." "Emma, you don't have to apologize for being hungry. Not here, not ever." Marcus sat down at the kitchen island. "But since we're both up, can we talk about something?" Emma climbed onto the stool next to him, her feet dangling. "Okay. You mentioned your mom went to Cambridge. Do you remember anything else about her? Where she lived? Where she worked?" Emma took a bite of her sandwich, thinking. "We lived in lots of places. She worked at restaurants mostly, sometimes hotels. She said she couldn't do the job she trained for because she didn't have the right papers anymore. I didn't understand what that meant. Did she have friends? Family?" "No." Emma's voice went small. She said her family didn't want her anymore. That they thought she made bad choices. She cried about it sometimes. When she thought I was asleep, she'd look at old pictures and cry. Marcus felt anger toward relatives he'd never known. How could they have abandoned Claire, their own family? "Emma, I found something today, something important." Marcus pulled out his laptop and showed her the photo of Claire from the Cambridge directory. "Is this your mother?" Emma's face lit up, then crumpled. "That's my mama! How did you find her picture?" Marcus took a deep breath. This would change everything. "Emma, your mother. She was my cousin. That means you and I are family. You're not just some child I found in my yard. You're my family." Emma stared at him, her sandwich forgotten. "We're family, like real family. Real family." Emma started crying, deep, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. Marcus pulled her into his arms, and she clung to him like a drowning person to a life raft. "I have family," she whispered over and over. "I have real family." Marcus held her, his own eyes burning. "Yes, sweetheart, you do, and I'm never letting you go." But even as he made that promise, his doorbell rang. At 3:30 in the morning, Marcus's blood went cold. He set Emma down gently. "Go upstairs. Hide in my bedroom closet. Don't come out until I say it's safe." Emma's eyes went wide with terror. "It's them, isn't it? They found me. I don't know. But whatever happens, I won't let anyone take you. Go, now." As Emma ran upstairs, Marcus approached his front door. Through the security camera, he saw a man in a cheap suit holding what looked like official documents. Behind him stood a police officer. Marcus opened the door a crack, his body blocking the entrance. "Marcus Sullivan?" the man in the suit asked. "Who's asking?" "I'm Gerald Finch, Child Protective Services. We received a report that you may have an undocumented child in your home, a girl named Emma Reynolds, age 6. She's been missing for 4 days, and her foster parents are very concerned. I'm here to retrieve her and return her to their custody." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Mr. Sullivan, lying to CPS is a serious offense. The Hendersons tracked their security system and saw Emma running in this direction. Your property is the only one she could have reached. I'm going to need to search your home. Not without a warrant." The police officer stepped forward. "Sir, this is a child welfare issue. If you're harboring a runaway minor—" "I'm harboring no one," Marcus interrupted, his voice cold. "And unless you have a warrant, you're not setting foot in my house. Now please leave my property before I call my lawyers." Gerald Finch's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Sullivan. We will be back with a warrant. And when we are, if we find that child, you'll be facing criminal charges, kidnapping, child endangerment. I'll make sure you never work again." Marcus didn't flinch. "I'll await your warrant. Good night, gentlemen." He closed the door and leaned against it, his heart pounding. He had maybe 24 hours before they came back with legal authority. 24 hours to figure out how to protect Emma from a system that had already failed her. 24 hours to uncover the truth about who Emma really was and why someone might want to keep her hidden. Marcus found Emma exactly where he'd told her to hide, curled up in his closet between expensive suits, shaking like a leaf. Mr. Hoppy was clutched so tightly to her chest that Marcus worried the old toy might tear apart. "They're gone," he said softly, kneeling down, "but they'll be back tomorrow with legal papers. We need to figure this out, Emma. I need you to tell me everything you remember about your mother. Everything." Emma nodded, wiping her tears. They went to Marcus's office, where he booted up his computer and prepared to take notes like his life, like Emma's life, depended on it. "Start from the beginning," Marcus said. "Your earliest memory of your mother." For the next hour, Emma talked. She described a woman who worked multiple jobs, who sang off-key lullabies, who made mac and cheese taste like fine dining through sheer love and creativity. She described a woman who cried when she thought Emma was asleep, who kept a shoebox full of things she called my old life. "What was in the shoebox?" Marcus asked. "Pictures, letters. A fancy watch, a ring with a blue stone." Emma's eyes lit up with memory. "And a paper, a really important paper that Mama kept separate from everything else. She put it in a special envelope and wrote my name on it." Marcus leaned forward. "What kind of paper?" "I don't know. I was too little to read big words. But Mama said it was my insurance. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should give it to someone I trusted, and they'd take care of me." Emma's face fell. "But when Mama died, the ambulance came and then the police, and they took everything. I only got to keep Mr. Hoppy because he was in my arms." "Do you know where they took your mother's belongings?" Emma shrugged. "They said something about storage because I didn't have family. But then I went to the first foster home, and nobody ever mentioned Mama's things again." Marcus made a note to track down Claire's belongings. That document Emma mentioned, her insurance, could be crucial. But there was something else nagging at him. "Emma, you said your mother couldn't do the job she trained for because she didn't have the right papers. Did she ever explain what that meant?" "Once, when I asked why we moved so much, she said she was off the grid. She said there were people who couldn't know where she was. People who would take me away if they found us." Marcus felt ice flood his veins. Take you away? Why? I don't know. She never said, but she seemed real scared about it. Emma looked up at Marcus with those ancient eyes. Do you think that's why the Hendersons hurt me? Were they trying to make me leave so those people wouldn't find me? I think the Hendersons are monsters who don't deserve to breathe the same air as you, Marcus said fiercely, then softer, but I think your mother was protecting you from something, and I think that insurance document might tell us what. He spent the rest of the night making calls. As a billionaire tech CEO, Marcus had resources most people couldn't dream of. By dawn, he had hired 3 private investigators, a family lawyer, and a security team to watch his house. But it was his head of security, an ex-FBI agent named Sarah Chen, who found the first real breakthrough. Boss, Sarah said over the phone at 6 a.m. I found something weird. Claire Sullivan died of pneumonia 6 years ago at County General Hospital. Normal enough. But here's what's strange. Someone accessed her death certificate multiple times in the past 3 years. Someone with credentials from Hillcrest Adoption Agency. Adoption agency. Emma went into foster care, not adoption. Exactly. So why is an adoption agency pulling death certificates? I dug deeper. Hillcrest Adoption Agency is a front. It's owned by a shell corporation, which is owned by another shell corporation, which ultimately traces back to... Sarah paused. This is going to sound crazy, but it traces back to Westwood Industries. Marcus nearly dropped his phone. The pharmaceutical company, the same, run by Richard Westwood, age 58, net worth estimated at $800 million. And here's where it gets really interesting. 23 years ago, Richard Westwood was involved in a massive scandal. His company was accused of testing experimental drugs without proper consent. The case was settled quietly, sealed by the courts. But rumor has it there were victims, people who died, people who were paid off. Marcus's mind raced. What does this have to do with Emma? I don't know yet, but I pulled Richard Westwood's college records. Want to guess where he went to school? Cambridge, Marcus whispered. Bingo, same years as Claire Sullivan. I'm sending you a photo now. Marcus's phone buzzed. He opened the image and felt the world tilt on its axis. It was a photo from a Cambridge newspaper, 24 years old, a charity gala. In the foreground stood a young Richard Westwood, handsome and confident, his arm around a beautiful young woman with dark hair and Emma's exact eyes, Claire Sullivan. And Claire was visibly pregnant. Marcus stared at the photo, his hands trembling. Emma's father wasn't some mystery from Claire's past. Emma's father was Richard Westwood, a billionaire pharmaceutical executive with a history of covering up crimes and the resources to make people disappear. And if Westwood knew Emma existed, if he knew his illegitimate daughter was out there with potential claims to his fortune and knowledge of her mother's fate. Marcus understood now why Claire had lived off the grid, why she'd been so afraid. She wasn't just protecting her daughter from neglect or poverty, she was protecting Emma from her own father. Marcus printed the photo and stared at it for hours, his coffee growing cold, his mind piecing together a puzzle that made his blood boil. Emma wandered into his office around noon, still in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked, noticing the circles under his eyes. "Not much, sweetheart." Marcus hesitated, then made a decision. Emma deserved to know the truth, or at least as much of it as she could handle. "Come here. I need to show you something." Emma climbed into his lap, and he showed her the photograph. "Do you recognize the woman in this picture?" Emma's face lit up. "That's my mama. She looks so happy. She's younger than I remember, but that's definitely her." Then her expression changed as she noticed the pregnancy. Was that me? Inside her belly? "I think so, yes. Who's the man?" Marcus took a deep breath. "His name is Richard Westwood. and I think he might be your father." Emma stared at the photo, her small fingers tracing the outlines of the two people. "My daddy? But Mama said he didn't know about me." "I don't think he did, at least not at first. But Emma, there's something else you need to know. This man is very powerful and very wealthy, and I think your mother was afraid of him. That's why she kept you hidden." "Is he a bad man?" Marcus looked into Emma's innocent eyes and chose honesty. "I think he might be. I think he might have done things that hurt people, including your mother. And I think if he knew about you, he might want to." Marcus stopped, unable to say the words, but Emma understood. She'd lived in fear long enough to recognize it in others. "He'd want to make me disappear, like Mama did." "I won't let that happen," Marcus said fiercely, pulling her close. "You're my family, and I protect my family." The rest of the day was a blur of activity. Marcus's lawyers filed emergency motions. His investigators dug deeper into Westwood's connection to Hillcrest Adoption Agency and the Henderson foster home. And piece by piece, a horrifying picture emerged. Sarah Chen called back at 4 p.m. with news that made Marcus want to vomit. "Boss, I've got it." The whole sick scheme. Richard Westwood has been paying the Hendersons for 3 years, since Emma was 3 years old and entered the system after Claire's death. He's been paying them to keep Emma isolated, undernourished, and under the radar. Why not just adopt her himself? Because that would create a paper trail, DNA tests, legal recognition of paternity, but keeping her in foster care, especially with abusive fosters he controls, she stays lost in the system, and if she happened to die from neglect or run away and never be found. Sarah's voice dripped with disgust. The Hendersons have been paid over $200,000 in the past 3 years. All funneled through shell companies. He's been trying to kill her, Marcus said, his voice hollow, slowly, plausibly. It looks that way. And here's the kicker. I found communications between Westwood and someone at CPS. The same Gerald Finch who showed up at your door last night. He's on Westwood's payroll too. Marcus felt rage like he'd never known. This man, this monster, had spent 3 years trying to erase a 6-year-old child, his own daughter, simply because her existence was inconvenient. "We need to go public with this," Marcus said. "Now, before they can spin it or cover it up further. We need more proof," Sarah cautioned. "Westwood has lawyers that could tie this up in courts for years, but I'm working on getting his communications with the Hendersons. Give me 12 more hours." Those 12 hours felt like 12 years. Marcus kept Emma close, barely letting her out of his sight. He had his security team patrol the property, cameras monitoring every inch of his mansion and grounds, but he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. At 10 p.m., Marcus's phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered, "Mr. Sullivan." The voice was smooth, cultured, and cold as ice. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. "Richard Westwood." "Very good. I see you've done your homework. Let me do mine. You're Marcus Sullivan, 29 years old, CEO of Tech Core Solutions, net worth approximately $3 billion. Self-made man, very impressive, no wife, no children. No family to speak of, really, since your grandmother died 10 years ago. The implicit threat wasn't lost on Marcus. "What do you want?" "I want what I've worked very hard to keep contained for the past 6 years. That child is mine by blood, which gives me certain rights. She's also a walking liability, a product of an indiscretion that could destroy my reputation and complicate my estate planning. I've been managing the situation as best I could, but you've complicated matters by inserting yourself." "Managing the situation?" Marcus's voice shook with rage. "You mean paying people to abuse and starve your own daughter?" "I mean ensuring a problem remained manageable. The Hendersons were instructed to provide basic care while keeping the child out of sight." If they exceeded their mandate, that's unfortunate, but not my concern. Westwood's voice didn't even change tone, as if he were discussing stock prices. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn that child over to Gerald Finch tomorrow when he arrives with his warrant. She'll be returned to foster care. The Hendersons will be compensated for their trouble, and you'll forget this ever happened. And if I don't? Then I'll bury you. I'll use every resource I have, and I have considerably more than you, to destroy you. Your company, your reputation, your freedom. I'll have you charged with kidnapping, and I'll make sure you spend the next 20 years in prison. That child will still end up exactly where I want her, but you'll lose everything. Marcus felt Emma stir in the next room where she was sleeping. He thought about that little girl in the doghouse, begging just to be warm. He thought about Claire Sullivan, dying alone, knowing her daughter would be at the mercy of monsters. "No," Marcus said simply. "Excuse me?" I said no. Emma is my family. She's my blood, my responsibility, and under my protection. And if you think you can bully me the way you bullied Claire, you've made a serious miscalculation. Come after me with everything you have. I'll do the same, and we'll see whose resources run deeper. There was a long silence. Then Westwood laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Sullivan. That child is mine, and I always collect what belongs to me." The line went dead. Marcus stood there in the darkness of his office, phone still in his hand, and made a vow. Whatever it took, whatever it cost, he would keep Emma safe. He would expose Richard Westwood for the monster he was, and he would make sure that little girl who'd asked to sleep in a doghouse would never be afraid again. But first, he had to survive tomorrow. Because Gerald Finch would arrive with his warrant, Westwood would make his move, and Marcus would have to prove that sometimes the right choice and the legal choice weren't the same thing. The war for Emma's life was just beginning. Gerald Finch arrived at 8 a.m. with 2 officers and a warrant. Marcus's lawyer, Catherine Wells, examined the document, while Marcus kept his expression neutral. Emma was hidden in his panic room, completely undetectable. "The warrant's valid," Catherine whispered, "but I found something. The Hendersons never renewed their foster certification. They don't legally have custody." Marcus nodded and let them search. For 2 hours they combed through his mansion, finding nothing. Finch's face reddened with frustration. "Where is she, Sullivan?" "Maybe your information was wrong." After they left, Marcus released Emma. She was shaking. "Are we safe?" "For now." Marcus knelt beside her. "Emma, I need you to be brave. Tell my lawyer Catherine everything about the Hendersons, everything they did to you." Emma nodded. Over the next hour she described the beatings, the starvation, the locked basement. Catherine recorded it all, her professional mask cracking with fury. "This is enough for an investigation," Catherine said. "But Marcus, you have no legal custody. CPS could place her elsewhere during proceedings." Marcus looked at Emma on his couch, finally safe. "We don't have time for proceedings. Westwood will move first." His phone buzzed. Sarah Chen. "Boss, you need to see this." The video file made Marcus's blood freeze. Hospital security footage from 6 years ago showed Richard Westwood standing over Claire Sullivan's bed. He glanced around, pulled out a syringe, and injected something into her IV. Claire convulsed. Alarms blared. Westwood slipped away. Claire died 17 minutes later. Official cause: pneumonia complications. "He murdered her," Marcus whispered. "There's more," Sarah said. "Hillcrest Adoption Agency has been tracking Emma for years. An email from 3 months ago. Westwood ordered them to expedite the situation. Marcus, he was planning to kill Emma." Marcus felt sick. "Send everything to Catherine and get me a meeting with the FBI. Tonight." FBI Special Agent Robert Torres reviewed the evidence in a coffee shop across town. The video, the shell companies, the payments. His experienced eyes widened. If this is verifiable, Westwood faces murder, conspiracy, child endangerment, life in prison, Torres said. But men like Westwood have powerful friends. I need 48 hours for an airtight case. Emma might not have 48 hours. Then keep her hidden and be careful. Men like Westwood don't go quietly. Catherine called with news. I found Claire's storage unit, got legal access. They drove to the facility. Unit 247 held Claire's life in boxes. Inside a shoebox were photos, letters, a man's engraved watch, and a sapphire ring. But the envelope marked, "For Emma," changed everything. Marcus read Claire's letter with shaking hands. She'd loved Richard Westwood until she discovered his crimes. When she told him about the pregnancy, he'd offered money for an abortion. When she refused, he threatened her. She'd kept evidence of his illegal drug trials, proof that people died, proof locked in a safety deposit box. Attached was a DNA test confirming Westwood as Emma's father and a brass key. At First National Bank, they opened Claire's box. Inside was a thumb drive containing spreadsheets of payments to test subjects, medical records of deaths, emails from Westwood ordering researchers to bury the data and eliminate problem subjects. This is mass murder, Catherine whispered. Dozens of people. And Claire had proof the whole time, Marcus said. But exposing him would have put Emma at risk. Marcus's phone rang, his security chief. Boss, someone tried to breach your property, a professional. Emma's locked in the safe room with guards, but they'll try again. Marcus looked at the evidence, at the key to destroying Westwood. Call Torres, tell him we're coming now. We're ending this tonight. At 2 a.m. in the FBI field office, Torres stared at the thumb drive contents, his expression darkening. This is bigger than I thought. Westwood's a serial killer. Can you arrest him? Marcus demanded. Torres's phone rang. He listened, face paling. Richard Westwood just boarded his jet. Flight plan to the Cayman Islands, he's running. Stop him! I've ordered the plane grounded, but his lawyers are fighting it. We have 2 hours before a judge decides. Marcus stood. Then we go public. Release everything. Make it so public he can't hide. Catherine protested about tainting the jury pool, but Marcus didn't care. I care about Emma being safe. If Westwood's in jail or running from international manhunt, he can't hurt her. Torres made the call. Press conference, dawn, we'll present everything. At 5:47 a.m., Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. You've made a grave mistake, Sullivan. Westwood's voice cracked with rage. That press conference won't save you. Claire already destroyed you. I'm just finishing her work. Claire was foolish. I taught her that truth doesn't matter. I murdered her. And I'm boarding my plane in 20 minutes. Once I'm gone, I'm beyond your reach. I'll spend my life making you suffer, and one day I'll take back what's mine. Marcus smiled coldly. Check the news. Every network was running breaking news. Pharmaceutical CEO Richard Westwood wanted for murder. The story detailed the illegal trials, the deaths, the decades-long cover-up. Photos of young Claire appeared next to Westwood's corporate headshot. Torres called. The judge denied his flight. We're moving to arrest him now. At 6:15 a.m., federal agents surrounded Westwood's hangar. He emerged with a hostage, Gerald Finch, holding a gun to his head. I want immunity, Westwood shouted. Full immunity or Finch dies. Marcus watched on live television. Torres stood beside him. He's finished. His empire's crumbling. He's lost. Will he accept that? Westwood's voice echoed across the tarmac, captured by news cameras. If I can't have my empire, that child will suffer for what her mother did. Tell Marcus Sullivan I've already set things in motion. Tell him... The gunshot was deafening, but Westwood hadn't shot Finch. He'd shot himself. Richard Westwood collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. It's over, Torres said quietly. But Marcus couldn't forget those final words. I've already set things in motion. 3 days after Westwood's suicide, Emma was safe, laughing, calling Marcus Uncle Marcus. Catherine was establishing legal guardianship. The nightmare should have been over, but Westwood's last words haunted Marcus. "I've already set things in motion," Sarah Chen called urgently. "Boss, come to my office, now." She pulled up files on her computer. "I found correspondence with a DNA testing company from 6 years ago." Her expression was grim. Westwood didn't just test his DNA against Emma's, he tested someone else's too. Marcus read the document, then read it again, certain he'd misunderstood. DNA paternity test results alleged. Father, Richard Westwood. Child, Emma Reynolds. Probability of paternity, 0%. Secondary DNA analysis. Alleged father, James Sullivan, deceased. Child, Emma Reynolds. Probability of paternity, 97%. The room spun. James Sullivan, his father. Richard hired investigators, Sarah explained. They found evidence Claire had a brief relationship with your father during a medical conference in Boston. 3 days. Your father broke it off and died 3 months later in that accident, never knowing Claire was pregnant. "Emma isn't Westwood's daughter," Marcus whispered. "She's my father's daughter. She's my half-sister." Every moment with Emma replayed with new context, the instant connection, the sense they were meant to find each other. It was blood. Direct blood. That's why Westwood wanted her gone, Marcus realized. Emma was proof of Claire's betrayal. And after Claire died, he discovered Emma existed, discovered she'd inherited evidence against him, and decided to eliminate both problems. Sarah's face darkened. There's more. Encrypted files in Westwood's computer, emails to a hired operative dated last week, orders to eliminate the Sullivan problem permanently. Really, Marcus, Westwood hired someone to kill you and Emma. That's what he meant by set things in motion. The operative was paid $2 million. Marcus bolted upright. Where is this operative? Unknown, encrypted channels. They raced to Catherine's house. Marcus's heart hammered as they pulled up. The front door was open. Marcus ran inside. Catherine lay unconscious, bruised. Guards were incapacitated. Emma's room was empty, her stuffed rabbit abandoned. A note on Emma's bed. "Your money or her life. Instructions to follow. Tell FBI and she dies." Marcus's hands shook. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Alone. Marina. Pier 7. 1 hour. $10 million cash. Tell no one or the girl drowns." Marcus grabbed $10 million in bearer bonds and the gun his grandmother left him. As he drove to the marina, he called Sarah on a secure line. "Track my location. Don't send anyone. If I don't contact you in 2 hours, make sure Emma's story gets told. Make sure everyone knows she was my sister." The marina loomed in darkness. Marcus parked at Pier 7 and waited. A figure emerged, ex-military, mid-40s. He held Emma, gagged and bound but alive. "Marcus Sullivan. Very brave or very stupid coming alone. I'm protecting my sister." Marcus held up the bonds. $10 million. Let her go." The man laughed. "Westwood paid me $2 million to kill you both. You're offering 10. Interesting. 12 million. Right now. Westwood's dead. Take the money and disappear." The man studied him. 15 million. And you never mention this. Done. Marcus transferred the funds on the dock. When it verified, the man nodded and shoved Emma forward. Marcus caught her, pulling off the gag, untying her hands. She sobbed into his chest. "It's okay, sweetheart, you're safe now." As Marcus turned to leave, the operative's voice stopped him. "One more thing, Sullivan. You should know the truth. Westwood didn't hire me last week. He hired me 6 years ago to kill Claire Sullivan. I injected something into her IV to stop her heart." Emma stiffened in Marcus's arms. "Why tell me this?" Marcus demanded. "Because Claire looked me in the eye as I approached. She knew, and she said, 'Please, my daughter, don't hurt my daughter. She's innocent.' I told her I wasn't paid to hurt the kid. She smiled and said, 'Thank you.' Then it's okay." He shook his head. She died thanking me for sparing her child, that kind of love. When Westwood hired me again last week, I took his money, but planned to take yours instead. Call it even with Claire Sullivan's ghost. Thank you, Marcus managed, for Emma, for letting us live. The operative vanished into shadows. Marcus held Emma on the dock. There's something I need to tell you. Your real father was James Sullivan. My father. Emma, you're not my cousin. You're my sister. Emma stared, processing. Your sister. Real family sister. The realest family there is. Emma started crying, tears of relief, joy, belonging. I have a brother. A real brother who wants me. Forever, Marcus promised. They drove home as the sun rose, two siblings bound by blood and love. The nightmare was over. Ahead lay something neither expected. Family. But one question remained. One mystery about his parents' accident that would change everything Marcus thought he knew. The answer waited in the final chapter. 2 months after that night at the pier, Marcus stood in the courthouse hallway holding Emma's hand. Today, the judge would finalize his guardianship. Today, Emma would officially become his sister in the eyes of the law, not just in their hearts. Catherine approached with a smile. The judge is ready. This is just a formality now, Marcus. Emma's going home with you. Emma squeezed his hand tighter, her eyes bright with hope and lingering fear. She'd been disappointed too many times to fully believe in happy endings. Forever, she whispered. Forever, Marcus promised. The hearing lasted 30 minutes. The judge, a kind woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence of Marcus's suitability, the home studies, the background checks, the financial stability. More importantly, she'd spent time with Emma, asking about her life with Marcus, watching how they interacted. Mr. Sullivan, the judge said, I've seen many guardianship cases in my career, but rarely have I seen a bond this strong, this genuine. Emma, do you understand what this means? Marcus will be your legal guardian. He'll make decisions about your schooling, your health, your life. Is that what you want? Emma stood up, her voice clear and strong. Marcus is my brother. He saved me when nobody else would. He's the only family I need. Yes, ma'am, that's what I want. The judge smiled, tears in her eyes. Then it's my honor to grant this petition. Marcus Sullivan, you are hereby awarded full legal guardianship of Emma Sullivan, effective immediately. Emma Sullivan, not Emma Reynolds anymore. Emma Sullivan. Emma burst into tears, and Marcus lifted her into his arms, holding his little sister as she cried tears of joy. After 6 years of fear, abuse, and loneliness, Emma finally had a home. That evening, Marcus threw Emma a celebration dinner at home. Sarah Chen, Catherine Wells, and Agent Torres all attended, along with a few close friends. Emma wore a new dress, purple, her favorite color, and laughed more than Marcus had ever heard. Speech, speech, Sarah called out. Marcus stood, lifting his glass. 6 months ago, I had everything money could buy, but nothing that mattered. Then a little girl showed up in my backyard, asking to sleep in a doghouse, and she changed my entire world. His voice thickened with emotion. Emma, you didn't just find shelter that night. You found home, and so did I. Emma ran to him, hugging him tight. I love you, big brother. I love you too, little sister. Later, after the guests left and Emma was getting ready for bed, Marcus sat in his office, finally allowing himself to relax. The nightmare was truly over. Westwood was dead, the Hendersons were in prison, Emma was safe and legally his. But one thing still nagged at him, the question that had haunted him since discovering the truth about Emma's parentage. His father's affair with Claire had been brief, secret, his mother never knew. But that car accident that killed both his parents when Marcus was 6, the accident that shaped his entire life, had always felt wrong to him. Police said his father fell asleep at the wheel, but his father was a renowned surgeon, meticulous about safety, never reckless. Marcus pulled up the old accident report, something he'd requested from archives weeks ago but hadn't had the courage to read. As he reviewed it, something caught his eye. A witness statement he'd never seen before, buried in supplemental files. An unnamed witness reported seeing another car run his parents off the road. But the witness was deemed unreliable. A homeless man with a history of mental illness, his statement was dismissed. Marcus's blood ran cold. He pulled up the date of the accident, 3 weeks after the medical conference where his father met Claire. 3 weeks after his father broke off the affair. With shaking hands, Marcus cross-referenced the date with Westwood's records that Sarah had compiled. And there it was, a payment to a consulting firm that was actually a front for hired operatives, the same firm that had employed the man who killed Claire years later. The truth crashed over Marcus like a tidal wave. Richard Westwood hadn't just killed Claire, he'd killed Marcus's parents too. Westwood must have discovered Claire's affair with James Sullivan. In his twisted mind, if he couldn't have Claire, no one could. So, he'd eliminated his rival and James's wife in one brutal act. The car accident wasn't an accident at all, it was murder. And 6-year-old Marcus had survived only because he wasn't in the car that day. He'd been at a friend's birthday party. Marcus sat in his office, tears streaming down his face, finally understanding the complete scope of Westwood's evil. The man hadn't just tried to kill Emma. He'd destroyed families, murdered innocent people, and shaped Marcus's entire life through tragedy. But Westwood was gone now, dead by his own hand. And in his wake, he'd left something he never intended. He'd brought Marcus and Emma together. 2 siblings who'd lost their parents to the same monster, who'd found each other against impossible odds. Marcus! Emma's small voice came from the doorway. She stood in her pajamas, clutching Mr. Hoppy. I had a bad dream. Marcus wiped his eyes and opened his arms. Emma ran to him, climbing into his lap like she belonged there. Because she did. Want to talk about it? He asked gently. I dreamed I was back in the doghouse, cold and alone. And nobody came to help me. She looked up at him with those ancient eyes. But then I woke up and remembered. I'm not alone anymore. I have you. Marcus held her close, his heart full despite the pain of what he'd just discovered. You'll never be alone again, Emma. I promise you that. We're family. Real family. Forever. And forever, Emma echoed, yawning. Marcus carried her back to bed, tucking her in with Mr. Hoppy beside her. As he turned to leave, Emma called out sleepily, Marcus, do you think Mama knows I'm happy now? That I'm safe? Marcus thought about Claire Sullivan, his cousin, Emma's mother, the woman who died protecting her daughter. He thought about his own parents, stolen from him by the same evil that had tried to take Emma. I think they all know, sweetheart. Your mama, my parents, I think they're watching over us, and I think they're proud of how strong and brave you are. Emma smiled, her eyes already closing. Tell them thank you for sending me to you. As Marcus watched his little sister drift off to sleep, safe and loved in her own room, in her own home, he felt something he hadn't felt since he was 6 years old. Peace. The monsters were gone. The truth was known. And in the ashes of tragedy, something beautiful had grown. A family forged not by conventional means, but by love, sacrifice, and an unbreakable bond. Marcus returned to his office and added one final document to his files, a letter to be opened if anything ever happened to him. A letter that explained everything, the truth about Westwood, about the murders, about Emma's parentage. The truth that would ensure Emma always knew where she came from and how loved she'd always been. But more importantly, Marcus made a promise to himself, to Claire's memory, to his parents' memory, and to Emma. He would give her the childhood she deserved, the safety, the love, the opportunities. He would make sure she grew up knowing she was wanted, valued, cherished, because in the end that's what family meant. Not blood alone, though they shared that. Not obligation or duty, but choice. The choice to love unconditionally, to protect fiercely, to show up every single day and say, "You matter, you belong, you are home." And Emma was home, finally, truly, completely home. The end.